Hi, my name is Amy. Thank you very much for watching, and let's make some bad financial decisions together. This is for entertainment purposes only, so if you're entertained, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. So Bitcoin is approaching, or actually is at, all-time highs, and I'm increasingly getting commenters asking, why don't you invest 100% into Bitcoin? Did you know that it has 100% CAGR? Everything else is trash. Well, I believe that wealthy people and rich people do not put all of their eggs in one basket. They diversify. And as Warren Buffett says, rule number 1 is to never lose money, and rule number 2 is to never forget rule number 1. Bitcoin has a cycle. Right now, we are at the parabolic part of the cycle, and then we welcome winter. So I don't want to get very excited right now about an all-time high. And this was actually suggested to me, but they said, why don't you take your $235,000 in your Roth IRA? Get the penalty and the taxes. You'll have $115,000, and then you can go and buy most of a Bitcoin. Well, that is a 45% penalty on my Roth IRA for a reason I don't need to do that. If I took a 45% hit on my Roth IRA and it was the S&P 500 and I was relying on that to get my money back, it would take me a decade to get back to $235,000. And Bitcoin does have a cycle. We can do basic pattern recognition. And every time there's a cycle, even like with all of the adoption and everything, Bitcoin becomes more stable. So I'm not going to rely on this 100% CAGR number because I know that the next time this happens, or at least I'm assuming, this is my theory, the next time there's a halving, Bitcoin will still go up. It'll still be the S&P 500. It'll still be the NASDAQ 100. But it won't be 100% CAGR. I'm not going to go and rely on that for my entire future. There's nothing wrong with being in Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related ETFs in a tax-shielded environment. And what I'm doing instead is I'm using the money that I'm making from the distribution and getting a penalty on that and putting that into my regular investing account. And the reason why I'm not 100% into Bitcoin in my Bitcoin related ETFs in my individual account is there's going to be a crash of Bitcoin at some point. It's going to lose 50% of its value, or somewhere around there, and I still have bills to pay, so I need my entire portfolio to not go down 40-50% at any one time. So I don't mind if I have extra money DCAing into Bitcoin and Bitcoin related products, but for me right now, I need to be more diversified because this is actually what I'm using to live off of it. So I just don't think that we should rely on the past performance of Bitcoin and assume that, when it goes down, it's always going to go down. No, that's not how Bitcoin works. When it goes down, it might stick at $70,000 for 2 years. I'm not going to buy it at FOMO into it at $122,000 right now, and then spend the next 2 years lamenting about it because it's at $75,000 and now I don't have any money in order to DCA into Bitcoin. So what I could do instead, because I would rather keep myself solvent during this period, is we could do another indirect rollover. I did it this year, but because I wound up losing my job and having to actually sell my condo, I didn't actually see the benefits of it. So I could try it one more time. And what an indirect rollover does is the amount of money I take and put into my account, the brokerage will take 10% and have that for the 10% penalty. So I'll receive 90% of the funds that I requested. And as long as I put 100% of those funds back within 60 days, then there's no penalty and there's no tax. It's not income, it's just moving funds around. So what that does, though, is if I take all $235,000 and then I have to do this $200, like I get $211,500, but then I have to pay back $235,000. So it means that I would have a lot of margin out still, like 70% used, which at this point I'm doing right now. And since you can only do indirect rollovers once a year, so 365 days or 366 days after you received the funds for your indirect rollover, although I am not going to do it that tightly together just in case. But basically, once per year, you can do this indirect rollover. I would have a lot of margin. And what this does for me is, since I can't do it until like September next year anyways, and this is not official, but what we could do is I'm on track to pay off all of my credit cards that the promotional period ends in 2026 by February next year. And so we can focus on paying off my margin in my taxable account and then sell enough assets so that I have enough margin to pay off my personal loan in July. And then use my Roth IRA to wipe out that margin and basically invest $100,000 more than I was, and then take out the margin to pay out my Roth IRA. So I'll just have an incredible amount of margin taken out. However, it will just result in me needing a 50% yield to get the $13,000 a month instead of 70%. So basically, with more money, I would need less overall yield in order to survive. So if I can survive off of a 50% yield versus a 75% yield, I think in the long run, I can be in more sustainable ETFs and then just not take money out of my IRA. I can just put my IRA money back in. I can invest in it like it's a retirement account, and we are never going to touch it again until the next time I do an indirect rollover, basically. But then what we can do is, because I won't have a personal loan anymore, and all of the promotional balance for the credit cards for 2026 will be over with. So then basically my minimum monthly amount will go down from $6,000 to less than $5,000. And at the same time, like I only have an additional, I did the 3% transfer fee to transfer over almost $6,000 onto a new credit card that has 2 years to pay it off. So after everything that we've done, paying $6,000 and margin is not that bad. Or like in that credit card is totally doable in that 24-month period. So I'm not worried about it. I mean, I'll get it done, but I'm not worried about it. So then we can continue to just basically take 2/3 DCA into Bitcoin and take 1/3 and put it back into my portfolio. And then when I have double the amount for my trailer, I can take a margin loan out of my Bitcoin, pay off my trailer. And what that does is we've locked in Bitcoin in the winter time when it should theoretically be the lowest it's ever going to go, like at the new floor of Bitcoin. So I've locked in the Bitcoin. I don't have an 8.95%, hopefully, I won't have an 8.95% trailer mortgage anymore. And, we can pay back the Bitcoin loan. We can, and then put that into cold storage when we're done using that. And then that's how we're going to get, more Bitcoin than I have now in 2026. So I do have a plan. It's not set in stone for 2026 where I can DCA into Bitcoin. Because at this point, if I'm making $13,000 a month and I have less than $5,000 worth of expenses, I don't need Bitcoin. What I need is for my portfolio to be stable enough and to grow enough so that if there's a market crash or whatever, I'm still going to be solvent and I'm not, I'm not going to be homeless and need a job and then not have a job. So I'm still going to try to be more conservative and get the money so that I can DCA into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is more speculative, so I feel more comfortable getting my money in the more conservative way and then using that money to buy into Bitcoin. It's really just an order of operations thing where it's just not, the timing's not good for me right now to be 100% to Bitcoin. I don't want the sequence of returns risks. I have too much margin out. All the excuses, but it's not like I don't believe in Bitcoin. I just think that for me and the way that I think that this is the better way to go about getting more Bitcoin and earning Bitcoin. And if you think that I should invest more in Bitcoin, on YieldMight, you can actually buy me a sandwich. You can donate to me through the Strike Network and let me have more Bitcoin and Ethereum. So just putting that out there, that if you think that I should have more Bitcoin, there are ways to give me more Bitcoin. Speaking of YieldMight, this is where we can compare high income ETFs. So if you have $100 to invest, this is the amount of distribution that you would have got with the amount of shares that you could buy with $100. And then I've normalized it out to weekly, monthly, and annually because we now have twice a week, we have twice a month, we have every 4 weeks, we have, and then we have the monthlies here. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone. And I think that the more money you have, the more we want to be conservative and just make sure that we have money all of the time. And speaking of being conservative, because I was doing this rollover finagling yesterday, I did look to see like how much of my portfolio right now is in versus multi-stock, gold, crypto, and AI. So a quarter of my taxable account right now is in crypto. But and then I started like, but what if I sold all of my ulti and I had a quarter into gold, a quarter into AI, and a quarter into crypto? This feels more secure, but I would be giving up $400 a month, which seems not like something I want to do. But what I could do is sell another half of my ulti, buy more WNTR and more gold for the most part, and then transfer out like $1,000 more worth of the leverage stocks. And in that way, I would have 20% gold, 20% in the inverses, and then a quarter in crypto and a quarter in AI, and this only like 7% in ulti. And because winter has such a high implied volatility, this won't actually affect the amount that I'm getting paid per month that much. Although WNTR does have a 30% margin maintenance ratio versus the ulti 25%. But the thing that I was worried about mostly is our government is shut down. And for the most part, once it opens up, the market rebounds. But in the meantime, there might be a lot of drama. And I have way too much margin out to be dealing with a lot of margin. I would personally feel better if I had my 20% inverse and my 20% into gold. That way, like I can always buy ulti after a month because this would be tax loss harvesting. So I can buy it in my leverage trash account again. But I think for now, my goal with my leverage trash is, and this taxable account, is to just like get this AI and crypto stuff into a cash account. That way when AI or crypto, when it crashes or the bubble pops or there's something that happens crazy, and I don't want to get margin called. I want to be able to keep getting the amount of money that I need in order to live off of this. Ideally, it would look something more like I have 50% in gold, I have 10% in my conviction single stock ETFs, I have 30% in multi-stocks, which looks mostly like the S&P 500, and then we have my leveraged basket stocks, and that would be like 10% of my portfolio. So I would like to, I know that I said until the end of the year I'm going to like stick to what I'm doing, but I would like to move more towards this and less than what this is. So we'll get there. And so that is my opinion about Bitcoin and why I am not selling everything to literally get into Bitcoin at this exact moment. And I'll talk to you later. Are you 100% into Bitcoin? And do you have a system in place for you to acquire more Bitcoin? And I will talk to you all later. Bye.